Welcome everyone. My name is Sean, and today I got to talk about this recent bust in the city of New York where a group of migrants, a gang of them on mopeds, were arrested by the NYPD in connections with a bunch of different grand larcenies where they would target individuals on scooters, assault them, sometimes drag them and severely injure them, grab their cell phones, hack into their bank accounts, and drain those accounts. And the reason I want to talk about this is because this is one of the perils of letting in mostly male migrants into the United States of America, even though we know for a fact that they are committing asylum fraud, bringing them into our major cities, giving them a check, giving them a hotel, giving them a shelter, and all these other benefits, because those idle hands, that idle time is being used, and part of the way that it's being used by these criminal migrants is to commit additional crimes in our major cities. That's what I want to talk about today. But before we do, I want to say thank you to everyone who signed up on actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay.
And thank you to the podcast listeners, Spotify, Apple, and Google's podcasting platform.
We begin today with a crime ring targeting people across the city.
Police say it all starts with criminals on scooters who steal people's cell phones and then hack into them to get access to their banking apps. Security footage here showing one incident where a suspect on a scooter grabs a victim's bag and drags him down to the sidewalk.
So I actually had to blur that portion of the video out because it is incredibly brutal and because I forgot to blur out a partial police stop in a previous video, and YouTube demonetized that video, which did not have graphic violence, as if it contained graphic violence. But the full news segment is going to be linked in the description for you guys to see for yourself. But I do want to give a quick correction to the local news people, because they said this guy, they said him, this person was dragged by their bag. Men don't carry bags in the United States of America. Typically, what actually happened was a woman was being dragged by a criminal migrant on a moped who grabbed her purse at a high speed and decided to smash her head against a post on her way after dragging her through the sidewalk and through the street. She was very hurt by this particular action. If you watch the video, you can understand why. And this is all a part of an organized violent crime ring that these illegal migrants are participating in right here in the city of New York. And yet we are not hearing anything about deportation. We are hearing about how, oh my God, these poor sad sack asylum seekers, they had to rob, beat up, assault people, bankrupt them by taking all of their stuff after they hacked into their phones, because think about their sad lives, the fact that they're getting all these perks and they think they have the right to stay in luxury hotels in Manhattan and all that, when you're just working in the city of New York, so you got the privilege of being beaten up by these migrants.
Today, the investigation led to a raid and several arrests in an apartment in Allerton in the Bronx.
So far, 7 arrests and 3 more people identified that police want to bring into custody. The raid that happened here in the apartment building behind me stopped, or started to stop anyway, a robbery spree described as a very plague on the city.
So one of the things that bothers me about this segment is that they are ignoring the fact that these were criminal migrants, people who committed asylum fraud to get here in the first place, that are behind this ring, that these are the people committing these crimes, these are the people assaulting them, these are the people who are raided by the police recently, and I find it incredibly annoying that they're not explaining that in the local news segment. However, I do have this news article where we can go over the details and fill in the gaps that the local news is intentionally leaving out, in my opinion. So 2 men were busted in the Bronx as a part of a moped riding migrant crew that has been snatching cell phones right out of New Yorkers' hands in daring bursts of street crime. And police sources said they already flipped on the group's ringleader. The 2 suspects, Kleber Adrande and Juan Uzcatiu, can't pronounce that very well, are allegedly part of a wider ring whose members are connected to 62 instances of grand larceny throughout the Big Apple, including a shocking caught-on-video heist in which a 62-year-old woman was brutally dragged down a Brooklyn street, sources told the Post. So yeah, that man that the local news described as a young man who was carrying his purse, he was actually a 62-year-old woman. A 62-year-old woman was dragged by these thugs, these criminals, her head got smashed into a post because they wanted to rob her, because they, people who are illegally in our country, who should bare minimum act like grateful guests, decided that they're going to rob and abuse our citizens. That's who the local news is kind of covering for, kind of pretending that that was just a guy that was, he was just an adult man. He's totally fine. It's just no big deal, even though it was a 62-year-old woman. 62-year-old woman brutalized in such a manner by these criminal migrants as a part of a broader theft ring, 62 grand larcenies. So I can't wait to give you the update to this story where they arrest more people and we find out that they also got a same-day automatic release due to New York State bail reform. Now, cops are still searching for the ringleader, a Venezuelan migrant named Victor Parra, 30, of the Bronx, who was cut loose by a judge in December after getting picked up for grand larceny, sources said. As a part of the strategy of this channel, I'm trying to react to information more on the fly. Certain stories are obviously always going to command more upfront research, but I swear to you guys, I had no idea that Victor Parra had already been arrested in the month of December, could have been held. It was on a grand larceny, a very similar charge, but of course, due to bail reform, this criminal migrant got a same-day automatic release, and that is why he's still at large. I'm sure that is quite comforting to the 62-year-old woman who was dragged to the other people who were victimized in this grand larceny scheme, but it just goes to show you the absolute idiocy and the failure of New York State bail reform, because all of these people who should be deported upon arrest, let's be clear about that, who should have never been paroled into this country in the first place, are granted the same privileges of the same-day automatic release guaranteed by bail reform, despite the fact that they are violent criminals and despite the fact that they're incredibly destructive. Even if we didn't have this woman being injured, even if we didn't have a series of instances where these people are snatching up phones, assaulting people, which by the way is all happening, let us be clear, Bernie Madoff never needed to punch anybody in the face to ruin the lives of people. These people are doing just that. They're robbing bank accounts, stealing their phones, hacking into them, transferring the money to themselves, and I don't give a damn whether or not they injure somebody during that process, because they are hurting them. They are hurting their lives, and there should be some damn consequences for that.
Videos from NYPD show suspects working in pairs on mopeds, tugging at and often knocking over unsuspecting victims to wrestle free iPhones, bags, and wallets. Police officers accompanied by Mayor Eric Adams made multiple arrests in an apartment at 2970 Bronx Park East, described as a stash house or headquarters for a wide-ranging multi-borough cell phone robbery operation.
Look, I know Republican President George W. Bush used to do this, but I'm not a fan of politicians in the executive branch dressing up in costumes and going along with police raids so that they can act like they're doing something. Eric Adams, you're a dope. You look like an absolute idiot right here. What you need to do is stop offering new incentives like $53 million in prepaid debit cards to illegal migrants and start prosecuting and cracking down on these criminals. And no, that does not include you wearing a police vest for what they expect to be a non-dangerous arrest scenario, because you just look absurd. This isn't doing anything to solve the problem. But you have all of these criminal migrants in the city of New York that, by the way, the voters in the state of New York who vote blue overwhelmingly for President Joe Biden have advocated for. And what we need to do is turn around this policy. Remember, it is a privilege to be admitted into the United States. Even if you are applying for asylum, being paroled into this country is supposed to be after extensive screening and only under limited circumstances. Yet we're seeing that happen over and over again, even though this is clearly and obviously repeated instances of asylum fraud being committed in our country. And now we're allowing criminals to run wild, but it's okay because dopey Eric Adams is going to wear a police vest and pretend like he's participating in the raid.
Described as a stash house or headquarters for a wide-ranging multi-borough cell phone robbery operation, connected to more than half a dozen suspects, many of them migrants, according to police.
The small number of people are breaking the law and having a huge impact.
So yeah, right there you see dopey Eric Adams walking around the side of the building acting like he's doing something, and finally the local news report says, oh yeah, by the way, these are criminal migrants. And then Eric Adams immediately runs to the defense, or at least the cut is made to run to the defense of him, where he says it's only a small number of people, only a small number of criminal migrants that are participating in this particular incident. And by the way, this is one of the things that bothers me about this particular topic, because while it is in fact true that illegal immigrants in the United States of America do commit lower rates of crime than Americans, that is only true because Black Americans in the United States of America commit significantly higher levels of crime. In reality, illegals are likely the second highest criminal demographic in the United States of America. However, it is really hard to nail down their level of criminality in this country because we don't actually collect in the overwhelming majority of states. We're talking 49 out of 50 states, immigration status information upon arrest. That is not a stat that is submitted to the public. So one of the things that people would like to do is compare legal immigrants, people who follow the rules, to the general population and try to work in illegals there, or look at the arrest rates when, again, we're not collecting that information upon arrest, so you could just presume that the absence of the information means they're all citizens, thus skewing the numbers even further. So yeah, to be clear, while it is true that illegal immigrants commit less crimes than Black citizens in the United States of America, the fact of the matter is Black Americans are part of the bargain in this country in a way that illegals just don't have to be. We didn't have to parole these people into this country. We decided to do so. So every single crime that is committed, every single murder of a citizen by these individuals, every single robbery is the responsibility of our immigration program, because unlike any demographic of Americans who are born citizens in this great nation, there is a point of entry where you can stop these individuals before they get into the interior and start committing crimes. These people were paroled into this nation by the Biden administration because he decided that anyone who wants to commit asylum fraud should be welcomed into our country, and then they decided to go to New York City where they got a bunch of different handouts at the expense of the citizenry. Now they're robbing the citizens extensively, repeatedly in these organized groups, and guess what? We're all supposed to pretend like it's okay because the sad migrants, they had such a sad, miserable life. Golly gee, what can we do but let them attack our elderly?
This administration, police department, we've always talked about welcoming asylum seekers, but once you start robbing people and stealing from them, your status is criminal and you'll be treated as such.
Listen, I appreciate the second half of that sentence, that no matter how you got to this country, once you start committing crimes, once you start robbing people, you are in fact a criminal, and that's how we're going to treat you. But I'm so sick and tired of when migrants commit a crime, when these illegals, when these people who are committing asylum fraud violate our laws, that people have to go out of their way to say, oh, well, it's just a small group of them. Oh, well, all these other illegals that are also committing asylum fraud, they're actually not robbing and they're not a part of this ring. Just so you know, it's not all of them. And don't worry, our police department welcomes illegals. We're totally on board with them until they commit additional crimes. I don't need to hear that. I don't want to hear that nonsense. What I want you to do is stop running cover for these people and prosecute the criminals. Now, I understand that the NYPD is barred from working with ICE, that these people won't be deported no matter what. But how about, and by the way, this is obviously beyond the NYPD, when you arrest a criminal migrant in the month of December, who we find out 2 months later is the leader of this ring, you have him in jail awaiting trial in custody so you can attach those charges to him rather than having to initiate a manhunt for somebody who is already in your custody. How about same-day automatic release? Bail reform does not apply to these criminal migrants in the same way that it applies to citizens. How about, even crazier, we actually let judges have judgment like they do in 49 other states in this union, so we can hold people based on their dangerousness rather than just listing off a bunch of crimes that you will be let out automatically on because, God forbid, we hold the criminal migrant accountable for his actions. God forbid you get held pre-trial and then you actually get new charges attached to you when they find out that you're the leader of a large-scale criminal operation.
Suspects arrested in the overnight Monday raid and evidence recovered. Other suspects believed to be connected to the same ring were arrested over the weekend.
Now, the next thing I want to point out to you guys is that CBS is blurring the faces of these criminal migrants. It's protecting the identities of these adults, of these people who rob and attack people, of these people who are arrested in connection with the robbery and the attack, and this is due to a policy that they're instituting that we should all take note of blurring the faces of non-white suspects because we gotta protect your perception rather than actually show you the facts of the case. Now, fortunately, I actually have New York Post photos of these criminal migrants. I want you to look at them in the face because we're not going to allow CBS to get away with this, especially considering they showed Daniel Penny across their airways on television without any attempt to hide or obscure his identity. So CBS, shame on you. I busted you up in the beginning for your BSing about this particular story, the fact that you're hiding the ball that this is criminal migrants, and now the fact that you're covering up the faces of the same criminal migrants. It's disgusting, and nobody should support you.
This is footage of the man police say they were looking for. He has not yet been identified, but we are blurring his face at the moment while charges are pending. We watched again as all of this went down. More than a dozen officers were around when it happened before entering a home here on Lafayette Avenue. Now,
for my podcast listeners, what you're actually looking at right here is two different pieces of video from CBS, the same CBS, taken days apart. In the top, you can see Daniel Penny, the person accused of a homicide, even though he claims he's acting in self-defense, who turned himself in, no face blurred because you got to see this white man's face. At the bottom, you see another criminal, somebody who's not white, somebody who had to be arrested by the police. He didn't turn himself in, and his face is blurred, and you can hear the audio from the bottom one saying that they're blurring because charges are pending. Again, that same privilege only applies to criminal migrants and non-white suspects in the city of New York from CBS 2. Also, another thing that I find insanely ridiculous is that every single person pictured here for these new arrests has previous arrests. All of them, 100% of them, and they've all been arrested as recently as mid-November. But guess what? They were all freed without bail because bail reform guaranteed them a same-day automatic release. So they were free to reoffend again. 62 total grand larceny allegations that we know about, and that is what we're just allowing from these criminal migrants. 14-member crew, all with previous arrests, all released on the streets to do it again. Look, these are serious criminals, and it doesn't require somebody to get punched in the face for it to be treated with the seriousness that it deserves. Anybody who's ever had their identity stolen knows that it's an absolute nightmare, and that's what these people are doing. And what makes matters worse is that they're criminal migrants, a lot of them. These are asylum fraudsters, and we're not even talking about deporting them, even though they should be deported immediately upon arrest for these crimes. However, unfortunately, in this crazy, insane world that we live in, the first thing that the news media looks to do, the first thing that the police look to do, the first thing that the mayor looks to do is go to the press and talk about how much we absolutely love these asylum seekers. We love when you commit asylum fraud, even though we all know full well that Eric Adams, on the other hand, is deciding that he's trying to close the border to these criminal migrants, prevent them from coming into the city, but he has to virtue signal to the public to say how much he wants to make out with every one of these criminals because he absolutely loves the fact that they committed asylum fraud to get here. Absolutely not ridiculous. Send them home, punish them to the fullest extent of the law. If you get arrested, you don't get same-day automatic release. You get held in custody to the point where you are deported back to your home nation so that you can live your life over there and commit crimes over there if you want, but we're not going to import that criminality over here. But hey, those are just my thoughts. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social media, support me with the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about this migrant theft ring. Till next time.